research is important. And I think I just heard something pop up, but I will get to that after, I promise. But getting personal experience from people who have been in your situation is invaluable, and that's something that not everyone can find. And so I would encourage you to talk to your professors and TAs. I would also, if you can, encourage you to reach out to professors who also serve on the college admissions board for advice. Again, everyone can Google, what do college admissions boards look out for? But if you can talk to someone, they might give you more unique information, their own personal tips and tricks that they've been told to look out for. And so that's going to be valuable as well. You can also ask a professor whom you are close to read through your statement and provide feedback. I qualify with whom you are close to because you're asking them to do a little bit more work, and professors are notably very busy. And so if you have a professor who you feel you have a good relationship with, maybe you've often visited their office hours, you've chatted with them about things maybe outside of class, talk to them about potentially reading through your statement. If there is a specific scholar that you want to work with that is attending your program or your school, then you need to be researching their scholarship / their work, their published work extensively. If you are going to take time away from yourself in your statement of purpose, you should not just be refuting surface level knowledge. So it is contested, I will say, whether or not you should mention specific scholars. Some people do, some people don't. Some people say not to, and some people say that it's fine. And so that's more of a personal choice. Again, that's why it's important to talk to people around you to see what they did, what works for them. But if you really do want to mention a specific scholar, you need to be very knowledgeable about their work, or it will be clear. When you are thinking about writing your SOP, there are some key questions that you need to answer pretty much no matter the situation, no matter the school. So why this school? Why this program? And if you are attending your master's internationally, you might also want to think about / answer why this country. Now, why this country could tie into why this school or why this program, but these are just the first 3 key questions to answer. But you also will absolutely need to talk about why you need a master's. Then you need to go into why your background, also what are your short-term goals and what are your long-term goals. So these are going to all be critical in your statement of purpose. So some basic formatting, now that we've done our research and we're into the drafting stage. This is just, again, a really basic guideline for a statement of purpose. It is going to vary so much person to person, school to school, program to program. And so this is not the only way that you can write a statement of purpose, but here's just a really basic guideline to help you get started. But again, please remember, always be checking the institution's specific requirements online. They should definitely have them somewhere. And if you are applying to multiple schools, which I assume at least some of you are, it's really important to keep track of the different schools' requirements in like a document somewhere. I would hate for your admission application to get rejected because you accidentally submitted 3 pages for this program when they asked for 1. And so please keep that in mind. So obviously, when we are writing our SOP, we're going to start with an introduction. And I would suggest spending the least amount of time here. In your introduction, you want to introduce yourself, your academic field of interest, and why it interests you. You can also include a brief anecdote of inspiration. I'll talk a little bit about this more throughout the presentation. But you want, if you're going to include a little story about why you wanted to pursue a master's in the first place, it's going to be something from your college years or beyond. Usually we want to avoid anything before that because it can be a red flag, and I'll talk about why later. After your introduction, you should get into your background. So about a half to 3/4 of a page spent here in this basic format. So this will just be your academic path, maybe starting from the first trigger to pursue research in graduate school, or you can just start at your bachelor's degree. That works too. So in your background, you want to provide practical experience and proof of your knowledge and your dedication. The third paragraph might be about your current interests. So again, I would say like maybe half to 3/4 of a page here as well. What is key here is explaining what you are currently doing, what your current career goals are, and why graduate school is the logical next step for you. So what are you doing right now, and what needs to be done next? Fourth paragraph, you should turn your focus towards towards the program. And this should be a few sentences max. Don't spend as much time here as you did on the past 2 paragraphs. So talk about the program, why you fit the program, and why the program needs you, and why it attracts you. And this is why it would be really helpful to talk to alums, because you know, everyone can find the information that's online, but if you talk to someone who's actually attended there, they might give you some insider information, and admissions officers would love to see that sort of research in your SOP. Then you would have a conclusion, which would literally just be a brief summary of all of this in a few sentences. So just remind admissions officers of the key points that you want them to remember. So basically, your statement of purpose structure is I am, I did, I do, and I will. Just a few things to keep in mind when you are writing your statement of purpose. Your statement of purpose needs to be as specific and individualized as possible. So in order to do that, you need to give yourself a lot of time. So give yourself the most amount of time possible to properly research, draft, edit, share with others, and submit each application. You ideally should be giving yourself, I would say, at least 3 months to be doing this, especially if you are submitting to multiple schools. Sometimes for certain schools and areas of studies, there are particular fields that admissions officers are looking to fill that cycle, and others that might be too populated. So again, this is why it's important to be updated with the information that your program is putting out. So be specific with your statement of purpose, but don't limit yourself by maybe applying to the wrong school at the wrong time, or being like so hyper specific that only one school could admit you. You want to give yourself the best chances possible. So be specific, but don't box yourself in so much. As you are writing, keep your tone professional and scholarly. You can demonstrate enthusiasm towards your studies and future endeavors, and I'm sure you all have some sort of enthusiasm towards what you want to study, because I don't think you would be doing a master's degree if you didn't have some sort of passion for it or dedication. But it's important to sort of restrain that enthusiasm, because over-enthusiasm, over-excitement, usually is a red flag to admissions officers, as it displays immaturity. So don't gush about the school as that would probably turn off some admissions officers to your application. Your primary goals, again, you need to do a lot of convincing in the statement of purpose. So what you're trying to do is convince admissions officers of the value that you and your future research bring to their program. And you also have to convince admissions officers that graduate school is the best and only way forward. If admissions officers are reading through your application and they don't feel that you really need a master's degree for what you want to do, they don't want to waste your time by admitting you, and they don't want to waste their time by admitting you. And so it must be clear that a master's degree is critical for your goals and for the work that you want to do. So now that we're actually getting into writing our SOP, I have some stylistic tips and guidelines here. You may have heard this before. I'm not totally sure. I've heard it a lot growing up, but it's really important, is show, don't tell. That means that instead of writing, I am a dedicated, hardworking student, you show them that you are dedicated and hardworking. So don't tell them what you are, show them who you are. That means being fact-driven and being compelling, but staying within the facts and staying clear and concise in your writing. Most sentences should center you and your work. And this is kind of why some people say not to talk about a scholar that you might want to work with, because it can shift the focus away from you. However, there can be pros to doing that as well. But basically, the bulk of your essay should start with I. I did this. I did research at XYZ lab, and I contributed in this way. Also, active voice is really important when you're writing because it places authority on your actions. So that would be the difference between I managed XYZ versus I was a manager of. Now, I managed XYZ is better because it improves readability, which is going to be my next point. And again, it places authority on your actions. And it emphasizes what you actually contributed. As I said, my next point is to strive for readability. If your writing is not as easily digestible as possible, admissions officers have no obligation to go back and reread your writing and to try and decipher it. Oftentimes, admissions officers will actually skim any essays that are put in front of them. And so you need to be really clear about what your goals are, what you've done, and what you want to do. An admission officer will not get tripped up on an essay and say, wait, let me start from the beginning. They have too much to get through to do that. They will skip right past it. And so readability is really important in your statements of purpose. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Also, you should be using varied but simple syntax. And so I totally understand why. I totally get it. But scholars tend to write in a more inaccessible, complicated manner. And it makes sense, right? Because you're studying usually something that's pretty niche and yeah, just complicated topics. However, please try and stay away from using this type of syntax in your statement of purpose. Again, we're looking for readability, something that would make sense even if an admission officer skimmed it, because they often do. So here's a tip. Frequently be reading your statement of purpose aloud to check for readability and clarity. Because sometimes we write something and it's grammatically correct, it looks good on paper, but when we read it aloud, we start to stutter and we start to get confused halfway through. So it's really helpful to just read it out loud and you'll catch any issues of readability. Never write negatively about past schools or professors or even yourself or any past experiences. Because not only does this stray the focus away from you, but it will really taint the tone of your SOP and it will alarm admissions officers. Again, statements of purpose are supposed to be professional, but they're also supposed to be positive. This is supposed to be a positive thing that you're working towards your goals and you're pursuing higher education. So never write negatively about anything, honestly. Typically, we want to refrain from using quotes. This is not something that most people do, but some people definitely get the urge to start with a quote. And it can be fine on occasion, but it can also be cliche. And that's because what admission officers actually care about the most is your voice and your story. And if you start with someone else's voice, well, they might question the value of your own in terms of what you can contribute to the program and how you communicate. Choose your anecdotes wisely. So they don't need to be wildly impressive, but they do need to demonstrate that you are reliable, that you're capable, creative, thoughtful, and resourceful. And again, this is the show, don't tell tip coming into play here. Instead of saying that you're reliable and that you're capable, show them through an example that you can provide without exaggerating, of course. Again, don't write about anything from high school. It will signal to admissions officers that you haven't had the necessary experience. So please try and choose anecdotes from your college or post-college experiences. Again, I sort of just mentioned this, but write the applicant that you are, not the applicant that you think AOs want to see or read about. If you're exaggerating, if you're trying to like fluff up your experiences to make them seem better, it's going to be obvious because admissions officers have read thousands and thousands of application essays. And so they're trained to notice inauthenticity and it sticks out to them. You should also be maintaining a professional but personable tone when you are writing your statement of purpose. I need some water, so sorry. Never try to incorporate humor or flattery. With humor, the person making the joke always knows that they're joking, but the person receiving the joke does not always know, especially through writing. Humor is really hard to land through writing, so don't even attempt it. And the same with flattery. Again, admissions officers don't want to be reading about how great their school is for half a page. They know it's great. They know that people are applying to it. That's why they're an admissions officer. They're there to read through these applications. And so again, keep your enthusiasm restrained, maintain a professional but personable tone. Avoid emotions / states of mind. So again, being professional means being fact-driven and not talking very emotionally. There's no need for any like sob stories or discussions of past struggles. You know, maybe if you had a hard time when you started your bachelor's degree and maybe your grades aren't the best because of that, and you sort of have the urge to explain that, don't explain that. Don't even give attention to it because it doesn't matter. Focus on your accomplishments, focus on your goals and your academic future. This one might apply, for example, to political science majors. But if you've worked with or in proximity to powerful figures, do not name drop. I have someone who studied political science, and this was a tip that was given to them because Some students may have worked with senators or even the president, you know, in a slightly removed way. And they always wanted to talk about it in their statements of purpose. But again, that is taking the focus off of you and the actual work that you've done. And it's placing all the attention on this big name. So do not name drop. Avoid cliches always. I see the word unique quite often in students' application essays and SOPs. There's almost always a better way to explain something. A good experience that taught me a lot. I read that a lot as well. You would not be writing about something from your past if it didn't teach you a lot. So it's just kind of redundant and unnecessary and takes up space. I also see I would be honored a lot. It's not the worst thing to write, but I read it very often, and it just kind of gets tiring to read. And so I'm sure that admissions officers feel the exact same way. Also, when I was young, when I was a little girl and I made this project for the science fair, that's something that's very cliche. And we want to, again, stay away from any experiences post or pre-high school or pre-college, because they're cliche, it's not really professional, and it signals a lack of experience. And so this phrase and that whole concept of talking about when you were younger is pretty cliche and should be avoided. Write what you know is a great tip that you can use for everything. Every sentence needs to be yours, and you are the expert of your own life and your own academic experiences. And so again, just focus on who you are, not who you think admissions officers want you to be. And most importantly, again, follow the prompt, follow your school's specific guidelines, because some will differ. How to edit a statement of purpose. So be prepared to edit your statement of purpose multiple times. Your first draft will not be your final draft. It should not be your final draft. And so be prepared for your first draft to be pretty different from your final draft. It can get tiresome. I know that. I do a lot of writing and a lot of editing. It can get very tiresome reading the same thing over and over again. So that's why it's important to give yourself 3 months, 3 or 4 months, because you don't want to do all of your writing, all of your editing in one sitting. You're going to end up trying to rush through it, and then you'll miss things and you won't produce your best work. Don't keep your statement of purpose to yourself. You should always share your writing with someone else before you submit. Again, other people will catch things that you won't catch, even if you read through it a million times. And when you're doing that, please be open to feedback and criticism. When someone has a critique of your work, that's a positive thing, actually, because then you can get ahead of it before it sees the admission officer and potentially harms your chances. So don't rush the proofreading process also, because if you are trying to just skim through really quickly, you're almost certainly going to miss something. So it's important to read it slowly, read it out loud slowly, read it backwards. So start with the last sentence, move to the sentence above, move to the sentence above that. That really helps you slow down and catching tiny errors. And less is more. Again, admissions officers are reading thousands and thousands of SOPs, and they do it for long hours at a time. And so they don't always want to read a statement of purpose that is longer than it should be. So less is more. Cut out anything and everything that does not articulate your main points or does not advance the statement of purpose, or does not just demonstrate your value. If you're going too long about one experience, maybe move on. Find the best part of that experience, write that down, move to the next experience. So do be as specific as possible. Do focus primarily on your area of interest and your future research. Do write with a positive, professional, active voice. And do give yourself as much time as possible. Ideally, it might sound crazy, ideally 3 to 4 months. Don't be sentimental, gushy, or nostalgic. Don't focus on obstacles because hardships rarely need to be discussed in statements of purpose. And don't start writing without doing a whole lot of research. So to summarize, a statement of purpose is more than just an application essay. You're trying to build out a narrative of your academic experience and your future ambitions. And this is really important. Your statement of purpose is your only chance of direct personal communication with admissions officers. You can honestly think of it like a one-way interview. And again, that's why it's important to write very clearly, because you don't want to be sitting in front of someone and have them not able to understand you or follow your line of thinking. So think of it like a one-way interview, because it really is a direct line of communication with admissions officers, and you won't get that any other way. It's an opportunity to step outside of your transcripts and your resume, because you can share your motivations and the details of your relevant achievements. Again, we're trying to show, not just tell. The best statement of purpose will be scholarly, professional, and pretty concise, but it will still be personable. You do want admissions officers to like you, and you want them to be able to picture you on campus with other students, with other scholars. Requirements will vary by school and program, so that's why it's important to keep all your ducks in a row. Maybe make a spreadsheet of the places that you are applying to and what their specific requirements are, so that you don't get your wires crossed. But no matter how requirements vary by school and program, you will always need to answer the whys. Why this school? Why this program? Why a master's degree in the first place? Reach out for support from others. That's where you will probably get the best advice. Give yourself as much time as possible, and specificity and individualization are key. You are all unique as people, you're all unique as students, and so your statement of purpose should reflect that. It should reflect your unique goals and your unique motivations. Any questions or comments?
We got someone who has a question.
Okay.
Hi, Ye.
Yes. What is your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Greeting, Gabrielle. And I want to share my example to ask how to write my statement. And I was studying mechanical engineering. And now I'm in ship manufacturing industry. But this field is not really as interesting as I thought. So I want to change my career. I want to study for robotics. And how can I state that I'm interested in this field? Because I am not in this field at present, so I don't know how to say that I want to learn more about robotics.
Yeah, so I would say, thank you for the question, first off. I would say make sure that you don't frame your decision to study robotics as a negative thing. So again, focus on what inspired you to switch over without framing it as a negative or as something that you just had to do, not out of something that maybe inspired you or motivated you. So think about what it is that really intrigues you about robotics, and focus on it as a positive change, and something that isn't you had to do it begrudgingly, but it's the right change for you, that you were guided towards the path that you actually want to pursue. So I would say just make sure that you don't frame it negatively. You can certainly talk about your journey towards studying robotics, and that would maybe be a brief sentence about, I was studying this, but after this experience, I realized that robotics is actually what I want to pursue. Or maybe during this job or this internship, I was put onto this project, and that steered me towards robotics. That would be better than saying something like, well, no one really cares about this other thing, so now I have to study robotics. So it's all about your tone and how you frame it.
It's a little bit, how to say that? I was intrigued because when one day I was watching YouTube video, and I was watching YouTube video. Sorry for the wrong grammar.
That's fine.
I watched a video about humanoid robot of Boston Dynamic, and let me remind my university project of making a simple robot, but now I'm not doing it at present, and it's a little bit awkward say, because I watch a video about robotics, so I want to study robotics.
Yeah, I totally get that. Honestly, I think that you can just start from your robotics project in university. Maybe just start there and kind of cut out the middle stuff. It's not really necessary to, I guess, talk about all the steps to your academic journey, just the most important ones. So if you just want to start from your project in university, and that being the catalyst for your master's degree, I think that would work fine.
Okay. Let me ask another question. What kind of career goal is specific enough? Because I think I can do many things, like if I can help to build a rover of NASA, or help to design the surgical machine like Da Vinci, or like assembling robot. There are many possibilities. So
yeah,
how should I write my statements to be specific enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say non-specific would be I want to create a robot. Specific enough would be I want to work on, this project for this company. I want to assist them in the creation of this type of robot, which would perform X, Y, and Z task, and that would assist this industry in this way. So get as specific as you can. So back to the rover, I guess. I don't know much about robotics, so I'm not sure how specific I can be here in my example. But if you want to work for NASA, like you said, I want to assist NASA in the creation of whatever specific type of rover, if there are certain types, which I assume that there are. And this rover would go to X, Y, and Z planet or place. It would perform these tasks, and it would assist in the development or the research of this and this.
Does that answer to your question, Ye?
Yes. Thank you very much.
No worries. We'll move on to another student, 云珍. Hi, 您好，您可以直接询问你的问题。
Hello, teacher. I want to ask that you mentioned that I'm studying in the political and communication. So you say don't need to name drop because I used to work with the president candidate, so I don't need to tell who the person is.
From what I have heard from my friends who studied political science, they say that they've been told it's a bad idea to name drop. So it's enough for you to say, I worked with a presidential candidate on their campaign, and I did this and this. So rather than naming them, making the focus be what you did for this candidate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think because why writing their name is not a good idea.
It's not a good idea because it takes the focus away from you. It can be kind of, I'm not sure if this would make sense or if there's a better way to maybe explain it, tacky. It just isn't very professional, and it might seem like you're trying to make up for a lack of experience with a big name. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I don't need to write their name also in the CV, right? But the company name, just that person.
Yeah, if there is a company that you were working under, then I would put that. However, if you were just working like directly for him and not through a third party, then I suppose it would be fine. But avoid it if possible.
Okay. So is mention which party you work with is okay?
Which party? Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Is
Are there any
anyone
other
else?
questions?
No?
Oh,
more
no.
questions for Gabrielle? Okay. Well, if anyone else have more questions in the future or wants more, tips on how to write this like statement of purpose, I've already added our line in the chat box, so you could just add our line and then we can connect you to Gabrielle in the future if that's required. And for Gabrielle, thank you so much for such an insightful and informative session. I really learned a lot today as well. Yeah, there was a lot of tips on how to write like strong statement, and students are acquiring for this slides. So I'll pass that on for the to those students. Hopefully this will help them as well. Yeah, and by the end of this presentation, I hope that many of us will walk away with a much better understanding of how to approach this essay. And for Gabrielle, it's having a real pleasure. Thank you for being with us today. I know it's really late on your end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I am going right to bed after this. But
Thank you.
thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for being here. I hope that it was insightful for you and helpful in some way. And I hope that I was able to answer your questions well. And if you need any personal or professional assistance with your graduate school essays, you can always come to TutorABC.com for help.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Gab. Okay. I'll see you around. See you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.